This week on Heroes Made in the USA. In America's heartland, Virginia Allen wanted to do more for AIDS patients than just raise money. She provided them with a home, and now she's educating an entire city. In Cleveland, Ohio, Nancy Lai Boat set up her law practice to specialize in representing the deaf. Today, her clients understand the law better than most people who can hear. And on Skid Row in Los Angeles, there are many who shelter the homeless. But Jimmy Tex Lacey asks something in return. He wants to see residents make something of their lives.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. Welcome to Heroes Made in the USA. Media coverage has associated the AIDS epidemic with big cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. In those places, powerful, glamorous people have pledged their support to AIDS research. But AIDS has also hit the heartland of America. When Virginia Allen lost a friend to the disease in Kansas City, she too pledged her support, but in a private, personal way.
I don't like to sit or lay around and think about, well, am I going to die tomorrow or the next day?
We don't look at ourselves and say, we're victims dying of AIDS. We're men, women, we're human beings living with a virus.
Hi, Michael. What's going on?
For some, like Michael, who is close to death, Virginia Allen's efforts have provided lodging and people to care for him in his final days. These are just a few of the faces of AIDS in the heartland. In 1985, like most middle American towns, Kansas City was not prepared to cope with large numbers of AIDS cases. Virginia Allen was working on her PhD in psychology then and was looking for a community service project as part of her studies. That was the year her friend contracted AIDS. She investigated a church-sponsored program to help AIDS victims. The church soon asked her to take over its Good Samaritan project.
I thought, well, okay, I'll do this for a semester, just for the practicum, 10 hours a week, and it was rapidly way beyond that. One of the first things that emerged as an absolute need in this area was housing for people with AIDS.
Her first group of volunteers raised enough money to rent an apartment for one young AIDS victim named Dwayne. They were able to pay for most of his needs that first month, but they could not afford to get him a phone.
And he died very shortly after we brought him home from the hospital, and we never did get the money to pay his phone bill. And that destroyed me.
Frustrated and angry, Virginia wrote a letter about what had happened and sent it to Diana Dawson, a reporter for the Kansas City Star.
She talked about the need for the hospice, but said that there was no money. They didn't see how they would ever be able to open up a house for the people with AIDS. So she wrote a letter about Dwayne and showed it to me during the time that I was writing my story about the people who needed such a place.
The response to Dwayne's story was both quick and gratifying.
And it was with Dwayne's story that we started getting financial backing. It was with Dwayne's story that we started getting more volunteers, that we started getting more publicity, and that we really grew up as a project.
The most rewarding reaction to Virginia's letter came in early 1986 from a sympathetic reader. An anonymous benefactor donated the use of a house as Kansas City's first AIDS hospice, a place for the gravely ill who have nowhere else to go.
We have 5 residents. That's our total capacity. Being confined so much and living with 4 other guys, it's difficult sometimes. But as far as the house itself is concerned, it really is a godsend.
The men who live here are receiving good care. They're receiving, things that they couldn't receive otherwise.
Family and friends of AIDS victims have been drawn to Virginia and to Good Samaritan House. Pat is a volunteer whose son died of AIDS in early 1986.
It's not an easy thing because we do have the boys that die, but this is something that has to be done. I will never get over losing my child, but if in working with these people that have AIDS can help them in any way, then that's what I feel I need to do.
But the accomplishments of the Good Samaritan Project are tempered by a cruel fact. Even in the heartland, the need for the services it provides is exploding. And it's more than just local people who want help.
We also have this coming home phenomenon. People who were not diagnosed with AIDS in Kansas City or in this surrounding area, but whose families are here, whose roots are here, and they're coming home. You have children who are still sexually active or who are unmarried or who may be using drugs or any number of things. And what do you do if this person is infected with the virus? You know, you can...
To help people cope with this crisis, Virginia has become a leading AIDS educator in Kansas City. She tells everyone, from first graders to senior citizens, about the Good Samaritan way of treating AIDS patients.
Well, what you can do with that person is the same thing you can do with anyone else. You can touch them. It's okay.
And her message has touched Kansas City's most powerful leaders. Virginia is heading for the first meeting of the Mayor's AIDS Task Force. The meeting will take place just blocks from Good Samaritan House at the world headquarters of the Hallmark Corporation.
We had the opportunity to look at what was happening elsewhere and to decide that the heartland would stand tall. History will marvel at our capacity for compassion rather than ridiculing our fear.
Michael will die in a few days, but he will die among friends because Virginia Allen cared.
I think before this epidemic is over, that there had best be a Good Samaritan project, whether it's called that or anything else, in every city and every town, because the disease will demand that.
Coming up next on Heroes Made in the USA, Nancy Leibold's law practice for the deaf, and Jimmy Lacey's Skid Row inspiration.
When Nancy Lai Boat was a junior high school student in Cleveland, she was so moved by a deaf student's struggle through a book report, she learned sign language and became an interpreter for the deaf. Little did she know at that time she would one day be making a far greater contribution.
He grabbed me by the hair when I was just going out the door, and he pushed me down and I tumbled. When I was up on my knees, someone punched me in the nose. My nose started bleeding. And then I got up the second time I tried to get up on my knees, and the owner came up to me and took his shoe and kicked me right in the chest, and I went rolling backwards. I got up again. There was blood everywhere. I was so
What
upset.
began as an argument over a pool table ended as an assault on Jim Condon, who was brutally beaten by 9 men. Jim is suing the men who attacked him. Nancy Lai Boat is his attorney.
My wife doesn't believe it. She's a little bit upset. She doesn't understand that the judges, that we lost. I try to have patience. I try to think.
Although their first arbitration was unsuccessful, Nancy is determined to bring the Jim Condon case back to court.
I'm never giving up, though. We're going to go to court again and again because I must have faith that the truth will be told. Right, it will. And
Nancy understands deafness from her years of teaching and interpreting. Her clients come from all walks of life with very different problems. Like Dorothy Piper, a deaf woman, a mother struggling to keep her child in a custody case.
this case is important to me because I feel the daughter was removed from the home. The mother told me that the daughter was losing some of her sign language skills, and this was really sad for the mother. It broke her heart to think that her daughter wouldn't have the ability to communicate with her when she got back home. And so I'm hoping that in court we can increase the visitations to keep the daughter's communication skills up to where they were.
Please be seated.
Nancy's concerns for the rights of deaf people began when she was a court interpreter, where she could only translate what was being said. Frustrated by the inability to advise or explain a misunderstanding, Nancy decided to become a lawyer.
There are very few lawyers in our community that know the sign language, that can communicate with these people. So the party's entitled to a lawyer, but a lawyer's no good unless they can communicate.
My clients really enjoy walking into a law office and being able to just come in and communicate. I mean, it's so easy. They can just come in and talk to me like a hearing person could go to their lawyer.
Many of Nancy's deaf clients are struggling and cannot afford to pay her. Although Nancy doesn't earn much money, she is undeterred.
I wish there was more professionals that signed because it would help normalize deaf people's lives a lot, I think.
To contact her clients, Nancy uses a TTD or TTY, a small device resembling a typewriter. Placing the phone on it, she types messages back and forth to the person on the other end. The printed readout enables a conversation to take place.
Hearing people don't realize that deafness is a communication barrier, that deaf people can become very isolated. They can't communicate with other people. They can't talk to other people. They can't meet anyone they want to meet. It's terrible that hearing people don't give deaf people a chance. With deafness, people look normal. You know, your deaf kid is beautiful. They look perfect. It's only when they sign or talk that you know that there's a handicap. And I think that's why maybe hearing people don't have the awareness about deafness that they do about other handicaps, because they don't see it that much. You can go shopping.
And what about Dorothy, whose little girl Dolly was removed from her home?
According to the Ohio Revised Code, the county has a duty to rehabilitate and reunite the family. And this also includes providing for regular and frequent visitation and communication. So I think it's extremely important, and we're requesting that the court grant our motion at this time.
The court will grant the objection to the comprehensive unification plan and direct that the visitation.
It's no wonder deaf people need interpreters in court. It's hard enough to understand legalese when you can hear.
Okay, so I was really happy in court. We won today. I'm really excited. You understand what happened? Okay, we asked for more
Today,
visitation.
Nancy helped this court recognize that there are special needs involved with deafness. Making a little adjustment, spending a little more time, small things that will have a big impact on this family's life.
And I met her, and we met face to face, and we had a conversation, and I was studying her, and I understood her clearly. I understood that lawyer's sign language. It was very clear, great communication. It was wonderful.
So it's a little more complicated for me, but I would never stop doing this. I will always have deaf clients. It's my law practice. That's what I do.
Coming up next on Heroes, Jimmy Lacey's Skid Row struggle and hometown hero Freddie Hanbury.
In the Los Angeles Skid Row district, there are many people who provide for the homeless. But there is one man who does much more. Jimmy Lacey motivates people to provide for themselves. He is known simply and affectionately as Tex.
I came to California in search of the American dream. What I figured I should have acquired in this lifetime. My own house, my own car, something that I can say that is mine. When I found Skid Row, I said, well, this has got to be that beginning. The first step is to find some shelter, a home, so that you can get some sleep, take a bath, brush your teeth, do the things that you're accustomed to doing.
26-year-old Mervis Miller moved to L.A. from Georgia via New York with no job, an estranged family, and no place to go. What he didn't expect to find was a man who demanded something in return for providing shelter to the homeless.
We want to say to the new homeless individuals who have come here tonight for accommodation that you will not be able to just come in here unless you're ready to listen to some rap session Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night.
When I first seen this little short guy standing up here, I took a very negative view of this guy because he was up here hollering at everybody.
If any resident who come here for accommodation want to climb up out of the rut of poverty, he may need to look at enrollment in one of the business colleges in the area.
As time passed, you know, I listened to this guy. What he was talking was actually making sense. It was giving me some thought of what I should be doing, what should be taking place in my life. Then they said, you could have a permanent bed here if you get an education.
What separates Texas San Julian Shelter from others on Skid Row is that he requires his homeless residents to take steps to improve their lives and not just take up bed space. Tex lived on the streets of Skid Row for years before he decided to turn his life around. He is now running the San Julian shelter and helping to change the lives of other homeless people.
After high school, I come to California to get into boxing, and I was here for 4 to 6 months, and I was arrested on a murder charge. And from that point, it was incarceration for 14 years. So I really didn't accomplish anything throughout my life. I was a nobody. I was doing nothing. Alcohol, the nightlife, the neon signs, all of the temptations on the street.
With a lot of support and encouragement, Tex pulled himself off the streets and took a job as a desk clerk at the San Julian shelter. He soon realized that working with the homeless was his calling.
I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping people. I do love this job, and I do love to encourage and motivate them to come up out of the rut of poverty.
Tex's words of support have given Mervis Miller the incentive to enroll in a 9-month computer course at Wilshire Computer College in downtown L.A. He's preparing for a future as a computer programmer.
Merv has made a turn. He's looking at moving off of Skid Row into an apartment. He's now making an attempt to do something positive and constructive for himself.
No one wants to live in this type of environment, situation for the rest of their life, if they have any common sense.
Some of Tex's disciples have already moved off Skid Row to pursue their dreams, like 55-year-old Clarence Jensen, a former San Julian resident.
It inspired me from the standpoint that I was given the opportunity to have a place to live, see, since I was not under drugs or alcohol, to finish the job I was doing, going to school and getting my diploma.
Clarence Jensen graduated from Adelphi Business School, and at 55 is out there looking for a job and a shot at a real future. Tex has given the opportunity to many of the homeless to start anew.
He encouraged me to go to school and get my education, and when I told Tex about my 4 B's and my C's, he was really proud of me.
He's a great influence, a great impact on a lot of people down here, you know, in the Skid Row district, you know, because it's no one really that can relate to him like he does.
So I look at him like an older brother that survived, and if he made it, I honestly believe that I can make it too.
Tex has given me the will to drive on, to be strong when times look like they're not getting any better. When I just can't go on anymore, just think something positive, think to do the right thing.
I think that any homeless person who has made the decision to do something positive and constructive for himself, if he plays fair with his inner world, then I think that he will be able to do just what he wants to do. He must have courage and determination.
Every week, 15-year-old Freddie Hanbury visits the pediatric cancer unit at the University of Mississippi's Medical Center. Freddie is winning his own battle with leukemia, and he's there to help other children adjust to life with cancer.
It helps because I've been through it, and I'm young, and I'm better, and I'm fixing to get off medicine, you know. And, you know, they can say, well, you know, look at him, he got better, I can get better too.
He's just one of my good friends. When we get together and start talking about taking me riding in his car.
I don't feel like I'm a local hero or anything like that. Never give up. That's just it. Always have faith, you know, and, you know, you get knocked down, get back up, and keep on going.
Freddie Hanbury, this week's hometown hero.
From Kansas City to Los Angeles to Cleveland, people across the United States are proving that the notion of heroism is still alive and well.